Convict Conditioning is a popular book about how to build brute strength with old school calisthenics. And I've received quite a few questions in the comments about this book over the last couple of years, so I figured it's about time I make a Convict Conditioning review video and tell you all my thoughts about it. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And for those of you new to the channel, my name is Ryan, and this is Minus the Gym, where I love talking about how I keep fit and healthy at home without relying on a gym. Now, getting right down to business, Convict Conditioning is a book released by Dragon Door Publishing, I believe in 2011, but I could be wrong on that exact year. And I bought it in 2012, and I have it on this really old iPad here. I got this iPad in 2012, so it's about 8 years old. Still works great though. And I bought it as a downloadable ebook, and I used it, I think for a good 2 or 3 years. I was referring to it. The book starts out by explaining how convicts who are in prison have to use their body weight in a lot of cases to build strength and just for survival reasons. And that's the whole premise of the book, the whole theme behind it, which I think is pretty cool. I think a lot of people might frown on the convict theme behind it, but I think that's a pretty cool concept, and it was great for the book, made it enjoyable, and kind of gave it purpose. The book splits up body weight fitness into 6 main movements, and those are push-ups, pull-ups, squats, leg raises, back bridges, and handstand push-ups was number 6. So I thought the handstand push-ups was a little weird because that falls under the push category, but everything else makes sense to me. If you guys have been following me here on Minus the Gym, you know that I talk a lot about push, pull, squat, and hinge, the 4 main movement categories. And in hinge, you have hip flexion, which would be like leg raises, and hip extension, which would be back bridges. So the first 5 movement categories totally make sense, but then he throws in the overhead press with handstand push-ups, and I thought that was just kind of out there, like why not just put it in the push category, but whatever. By the way, when I say he, I'm referring to the author Paul Wade, okay, and I'll talk a lot more about him later in this video. The book then goes on explaining how to build strength with progressive bodyweight exercises and shows you all the progressions to take you from the basics on all 6 of those movements to the master level on all 6 of the movements. So this means from like standing push-ups against a wall to one-arm push-ups, from vertical pulls in a doorway to one-arm pull-ups, from shoulder stand squats to one-legged squats or pistol squats, from knee tucks to full leg raises, from a simple short bridge to a full back bridge, and all the way to one-arm handstand push-ups against a wall. He also does a great job explaining the importance of warming up so that you avoid injury, as well as progressing slowly. And one of the things you might notice when you first look at this book, if you buy it, is that on the earlier progressions, the easier ones like standing push-ups against the wall and vertical pulls in a doorway, you're going to notice that the rep ranges are really high. He's saying sets of 20, 30, even 40 reps. And that might seem really high to you, but keep in mind that these are very easy exercises. Even for someone new to fitness, they're going to be pretty easy. You'll get the hang of them really quick. And the reason for the high reps is that it helps you build up strength in your tendons. You see, muscle recovers a lot faster than connective tissue. So it's important to take your time on those earlier progressions, building up to those high reps so you strengthen the tendons. Now, I did not use the program verbatim, I'll admit that, but I did use the progressions for pistols, for one-arm push-ups, and I will say that it's a great program. It definitely makes sense. The one-arm push-ups worked great for me, but the pistol progressions, I needed to adjust them a little bit. For example, on the one-leg squats progressions, there's one progression where he says to put the heel of your outstretched leg on a basketball as you lower down. And what I noticed while doing that was I just didn't have the mobility and the balance for that. I kept falling over. So I ended up giving up on it, possibly too early. But I used a different progression of my own, which was assisted pistol squats, where I would hold on to an anchored object like a fence post or a door jamb, and I would do half pistols and full pistols while holding on to something. And that progression worked for me. So I ended up eventually achieving pistol squats using my own progressions, just kind of using Convict Conditioning as guidelines. I'm not saying that Convict Conditioning's progressions are wrong. I'm just saying to be open-minded, keep in mind that we're all different, we all have different levels of mobility, So if the progressions in the book don't work for you, you may have to get a little creative and try things on your own or look in other places for other progressions. So that is the layout of the book in a nutshell. And now I'm going to tell you about the pros and cons. No pun intended on cons. Let's say upsides and downsides. How's that? So I'd say the main upside to this is that it's really well written. I think Wade is a good author and he's definitely knowledgeable about body weight fitness. And for the most part, everything makes sense. Like there's logic behind the progressions and the approach, and it's definitely a safe approach. I feel very comfortable recommending it to complete beginners because he starts off with really easy progressions and very gradually introduces the harder variations. So that is a huge upside to this book, definitely good for beginners. I'll also say that the progressions are great. I think they will work for most people, but I did encounter some situations where the next progression was still too hard for me. One of the downsides to the book, I would have to say, is some of the rep schemes that he's recommending. Like for example, on pistols, I keep talking about pistol squats. The master level of pistols, he says to do 50 reps in a set. Could you imagine doing 50 pistol squats? Like, I know it's possible, but why? Why would you want to build up to that level of endurance? Like, I do 10. I do like 7 to 10 in a set, and I'm like, okay, that's great. That's I don't want to do like 50 reps of any exercise in a set. And the exercises can get a little ridiculous. Specifically, I'm talking about one-armed handstand push-ups. That is the master level of handstand push-ups. And even though it's done against the wall, it just seems like really extreme. And he recommends doing 5 reps of one-arm handstand push-ups against the wall. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm sure someone has done it, but I think you're just asking for a shoulder injury if you try that. I personally haven't built up to it, so I could be wrong, but yeah, that seems a bit extreme. I guess I should also mention that there are no freestanding handstands in the book. It's all about old school calisthenics. You're not incorporating any gymnastics into it. So that brings me to the final question, like, do I recommend this book for people? Yes, absolutely. I recommend Convict Conditioning. It is a great program. It's safe for the most part. I would say to avoid the one-arm handstand push-ups possibly, but it is definitely safe for beginners who want to build up brute strength with old school calisthenics. However, if you're the kind of person who wants to do the more gymnastic style calisthenics, right, with freestanding handstand push-ups and levers and flags and planches, then you're not going to find that in Convict Conditioning, at least not in the first book. Possibly that's in the second book. I haven't bought the second book, so I don't know. But I can make a recommendation, okay? If you want that style of calisthenics with the gymnastic style, I recommend this book. It's called Overcoming Gravity by Stephen Lowe. This is what I recommend to people who want the more gymnastics approach to calisthenics. So earlier I mentioned I would talk a little bit about Paul Wade, the author. Okay, I want to mention that in Convict Conditioning, the guy doing the exercises, the model demonstrating the exercises, is named Jim Bathurst from beastskills.com. All right, that's not the author, Paul Wade. In fact, Paul Wade, who supposedly wrote the book, is nowhere in the book, and he hasn't been seen anywhere on the internet. So there's a lot of controversy. People are asking, like, does he even really exist? I listened to an interview that Al Cavadlo had with Jim Bathurst recently, actually, on his podcast. Al interviewed Jim about Convict Conditioning, and Jim said he communicated with Paul Wade. Paul is a real person, and it sounds to me like Wade just doesn't want to be in the public eye, maybe because he's an ex-con, you know? So I do believe that Paul Wade is a real person. He just wanted to get this information out in the world, but not be physically out there in the world of people seeing him. So I just wanted to mention that. I think it's a little weird. It kind of puts people off when they first get the book and they're like, oh, that's not Paul Wade, and they read the controversy. But I don't think it matters. It's still a great book, and I do recommend it to people who want to build strength with old school calisthenics. All right, that is my Convict Conditioning review, my thoughts on the upsides and downsides of the book. I hope the video was helpful to you. If it was, please like, share, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. And I will see you in the next video. Talk to you later.